I started this podcast because I'm fascinated by how we get better at bridge, how we reach that next level. I'm talking with expert players about how they got where they are and what they do to continue honing their skills, to less experienced players about what they're doing to improve their game, and to experts in fields outside of bridge, like learning and expertise. If you're looking to level up your game, check out my classes on Learn Bridge Online. Mondays are about the expert thought process, and Thursdays are about declare or play. You can attend the classes live or you can watch the recorded replay. I'm looking forward to leveling up together. All right, I am joined today by Joel Wooldridge. Joel, thank you so much for being here.
And thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So tell me, how did you learn bridge?
I learned bridge through my parents. They're both long-term bridge players, and I learned it when I was like maybe 8 years old and loved the game. Caught my interest right away, so I stuck with it.
And you came up through the U.S. Junior program, is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I started playing in the junior program maybe when I was 13. My first try was with Sam Hirschman. We didn't qualify for the team. In 2 years' time, I developed a partnership with Tom Carmichael. I met him when I was at the first team trials. At the time, it was a pairs trials. They were selecting teams. The next one was a teams trials with Tom. And then we ended up making a team. We were added onto a team that we played, even though we didn't qualify on our own merit with our own team. And the rest is history. I just kept playing in the juniors with Tom, then eventually with John Hurd.
How did you get good? You know, we all go from like, we know what we're doing a little bit to like, when did you feel like I'm good at this game?
Well, I had a lot of early success. So, I mean, maybe I felt like I was good before I really was. I don't know. People were telling me I was good for my age for sure. I first joined the league when I was 9. And then it took me a year and a half to turn Life Master. And at the time, I had broken youngest Life Master record. So that was nice. I won a regional with my mom in Toronto. My first regional was a mixed pairs that I won. And we ended up crushing second place. We had like 2 really big games, like a 70-something and like a 68 or something. So yeah, it was like, that was a win. Yeah, that was a good win. And when I was playing in the junior program, I felt very confident when I was playing against the other juniors. I had an interesting approach to the game. I remember when I was first getting going, a lot of it was psychology. So when I was declare, I would lead suits I didn't want them to lead, to try and let them break suits that I did want. And I did a lot of psychic bidding and cooperative auctions to try and prevent a lead against no trump or a slam that I'm thinking about bidding. And I did very aggressive preempting to try and block the auction, especially when my partner was a passed hand on light suits, not long enough, whatever. So I had a whole bunch of aggressive tactics that were a lot of fun for me at the time. So I don't know exactly when I thought I was good. I won a nationals when I was like 18 with Tom. I mean, I never felt like I was exactly not good, except when I was just learning the game with my dad.
Right. Sure. And so what do you think contributed to just continually getting better? What did you do?
Well, one thing that I did right at the beginning was I picked up Bridge World magazine, and I would just read the articles, and I'd go through the hands that were in the diagrams, and I'd look at what the good players did, like in these team matches. They had records of these team matches at high levels, and I think about what would I do with each of these hands in turn, and just think about whether or not what I would have done would have worked out well. Another thing that I did all the time was I would post-mortem quickly after each hand to myself. And I could only really do that when I was able to visualize the hands somewhat after the hand was completed. But I kind of had a little bit of a gift for that, because I know a lot of people struggle with visualizing the hands, but I was able to capture that pretty quickly. And so I just think about how the play might have gone differently, or how the bidding might have gone differently, and then think about what the ramifications might have been for that. And that would kind of lead me to improving my game, just me thinking about the game more.
Are there any books that you read that were foundational for you?
Yeah, so I really like the Kantar series, like the defense problem books and the play problem books. And I don't remember the name of this book, but it had a picture of the hideous hog, and it had a whole bunch of different squeezes in it. So I learned a bunch of squeezes that way. I picked up Alan Falk's Spingle Challenge, and that was just another good problem book. So just like all the good problem books, I would say, where you have to plan the play, to really give it a good effort, right? Like you have to see several tricks in advance. What's going to happen? If something loses, what are they going to do? If something wings, where are you? Like, are you in a good position? And you have to plan for what you need to succeed, and just not give up. If you can't see the solution, but you're getting close, just wait it out. Keep looking at it. So it taught me patience and it taught me perseverance.
Was there any skill that you kind of struggled with, like dummy reversals? Somehow I just don't see them. Or, was there anything like that that was an issue for you?
Well, I mean, I'd definitely say bidding came slower than play. I had to take a lot of time learning different scenarios for what the auction meant. So the play came a lot quicker. I had to work in the beginning on really training myself to watch the cards, because sometimes I would be lazy and I would see the cards but not file them away, And so I would get upset at myself when there was an important card that I had missed early in the play, and I hadn't been able to remember it. So I had to train myself, always watch the cards, And if you don't see the cards, don't flip the trick over until you do. Really follow them away and what they mean. Same thing with counting. Like you can't miss a discard. Every time that they discard, it has to be added into the bank. So just really the discipline of watching partners' cards, watching declarers' cards, making sure everything adds up before you're willing to continue to the next trick. And that took a long time throughout my junior years to really hone in on.
So how do you do that? Like, what was the process for you of, okay, this is something I really want to focus on. I'm lazy. Sometimes I miss a spot card. How do you focus on that skill?
Well, one of the things I did is I would sit forward in my chair. So I feel like if I was more, into the game, energy-wise, that would help me with focusing on what's going on. I mean, it was just more of a willingness to really push myself to try and be better. And you have to be honest with yourself. If you miss the card, no excuses, just do better next time and really try harder.
Do you like say the cards to yourself, like 4 of clubs?
Sometimes. But it's mostly just imagining the cards is more what I do. I think about how they're relevant in the remainder of the cards. So like if there's a 3 missing, like is that like how many cards are lower than the card that I'm looking at that I'm trying to study and figure out? How many cards are higher? What were the possibly options for a partner's card meaning, right? What would he, if he had these different hands, like in this suit, like what might he have chosen differently? And so there's a lot of negative inferences that can be drawn as well. And also what would declare maybe be false carding from? What would they be thinking about? If they know your signals, what would they want to do? If they are false carding, what would it mean if, the ramifications of things?
Takes you down the rabbit hole, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about.
There is. And, you have a reputation as a thoughtful player. Do you feel time pressure, playing in these big events?
Well, yes and no. When I was younger, I did not feel time pressure because when I started playing in a lot of these events, they didn't give you slow play penalties in these pair games, especially team games. Like there were as many high level team games, not just the ones I'm playing in, where these like spin gold events would go maybe hours over the expected time, and there were no penalties for it, and there was great bridge, and it was just expected that bridge is a game that takes time, and so in order to play it well, sometimes you're going to have to take extra time. And so I never felt pressure back then, but when they started instituting these time penalties, and then people started, especially when the online thing happened during COVID, like everyone started playing online, and then there's like these strict regimented time rounds, and people are like, they seem to yell at you every time you take 30 seconds. So yeah, I felt pressure from that. I don't think bridge should be played so quickly. I think it is a game of thought, and you should be able to take some time, especially when there's a time allotment. Just try and stick to your time allotment as best you can.
Do you like the way the USBF has done it with Love Bridge at the trials?
I think that it's nice that the players and the partnerships and the teams get a specific recording of how long they're taking, so that, if they take long on a hand, but that's not indicative of how they play throughout the match, that, they're not punished for that one hand. But of course, if they are taking a lot of time throughout the match, then that would be reflected as well in the recording. So I think that's very nice to have an accurate estimate of how long players are actually taking.
I think so too. I really enjoyed it. Do you remember your first big win in a team match, like a team that you were not expecting to beat?
I remember playing against some Italians with my mom in like a spin gold when I was very young. And I don't know exactly which Italians were on the team, so I can't say, which names, but they were international players and experts. And I remember at one point they just freely bid up to a slam, and I had like 16 high, including honor, fourth of trump, and I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna double. And like my honors were on side, and they were finessing me, but then like they still couldn't make it. I just had too much wood, and so now they're desperate to take this one finesse, and I like duck my offside honor. I'm like, go ahead and repeat it. If you do, you're down extra, and they're just like, I gotta do it. Yeah. So I remember that was like a big victory, and I don't know if we won that match or if we got close to winning that match, but I mean, I guess that's maybe one of my oldest memories of a really good team.
And then at some point you start to feel like I belong here with these guys, like the luminaries of the game, right? Like, what was that process like for you?
Well, I remember playing against a lot of players with renown who I knew where they were in the beginning and having trouble doing well against them. And I was like, okay, well, just the next time I'm gonna, just go again and hopefully I'll learn something. And it's just a matter of like, learning and experience gathering throughout the years. And then eventually at some point you emerge victorious one time, and it's kind of like the monkey is off your back, and this pair does not just own me anymore. So, and things get interesting.
Yeah. How much bridge do you play these days?
I play every day during the week. I would be playing the weekends, except that I try to keep my life. So I take off Saturdays and Sundays now for the most part, unless I'm playing in a regional or a national, at least.
So mostly you're playing with students during the week?
Yeah, I mostly play with students. I've recently adopted playing some practice most days during the week as well, just bidding practice with my regular partner to try and keep our partnership strong in the auction, and that's actually been pretty good. It makes me feel confident by the time the nationals roll around. So I'm doing that on a Qbids app. Yeah.
How do you use your time playing with students to work on your own game? Do you feel like you can use that time to make yourself a stronger player?
Well, the time that I spend with my students, even though it's like, it might be like a club game, or it could be some sectional regional that they've hired me for, or it could just be like a lesson that I've prepared, it's still bridge, right? So things will happen, and, most hands are unique, but they have some themes or comparisons to previous hands that you can build on. And so whenever you're thinking about the game, right, if you're just not, totally just pitching cards, there's still something to be learned. So even though you're playing with a student, a lot of it is like, okay, well, how do I create my defense or my bidding to best help my partner, so that they can't go wrong? And so that like fence building is actually really interesting to look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I have found that as well playing with students. What do you do leading up to a big tournament? Does your routine change?
Well, one of the things I like to do is I like to review my notes. So any areas where I think, there could be a memory issue, I just go in there and refresh myself so that if it does come up, I feel confident, because a lot of these big events are mostly just about feeling confident and then doing your best. And it's not necessarily that you're going to, succeed that way, but at least you're putting your best foot forward.
And you're playing with David Granger these days? Is that right?
That's my regular partner is David Granger, yes.
What do your notes with him look like? How long are they?
Well, we have a lot of notes, and they're detailed about auctions and the follow-ups and like, tertiary and fourth rounds and fifth rounds, because we use like transfers over a club, and then there's like a lot of rounds of the bidding, and so there's all these options that can happen because the auction is taking longer with these transfers. So I just kind of have to look and see when we get down to like the fourth round of an auction what it might mean. And I mean, they're detailed in some spots. It's not like every auction is in our notes, but there's a lot.
Are they like 100 pages, 200, 500?
No, we have under 100 pages.
Okay. Are you in charge of keeping and updating the notes?
We're both in charge of it. He's much better at it than I am. But yeah, when we get in there and we discuss things and we want to edit it, either one of us can do that. For the most part, we're using Google Docs, and so you can highlight different areas that maybe are just ideas for the moment. Maybe this area needs review, or this is my idea for how we might look at this differently and not necessarily implement it. So yeah, you can do those kinds of things for sure.
Do you, as a partnership, do you amp up practice in the weeks before a big event?
I mean, historically, yes, but not necessarily. We are practicing throughout the week, right? So the bidding practice is very important. The card play kind of comes to you just naturally through the game, so it doesn't necessarily need to be practiced. The only other thing that I would recommend practicing besides bidding, I guess, would just be like one's own technique. You can brush up on your declare play, read a few books, or, use some challenge scenarios that would help you sharpen.
When you're at a tournament, what do you do? What is your routine like?
Well, at a tournament, I think it's very important to make sure that you get enough sleep and that you're sleeping at a reasonable hour, at least from what you're used to, and that you eat your meals as you normally would, and you just plan to not cause too much stress in your life for the tournament because you don't want to burn yourself out. I regularly exercise now, but I don't necessarily need to do that. I just, I do that as well. It doesn't really cause a problem for me.
How about, do you drink at all during a tournament?
I mean, I try not to. If there's an important event, I try not to drink the day before or during the event. When the event is over, yeah, sure, whatever, as long as there's not another important event.
You changed your diet and lifestyle a few years ago. Do you think it has affected your bridge?
I definitely think it has affected my bridge. Just generally speaking, I like to be active, like I enjoy being active, and I like being healthy, and I've always enjoyed sports. So it kind of bothered me that I had let myself go. And so I always wanted to get in better condition anyway. But it was actually a great side effect to bridge because I found that when you're more active, feeling healthy, the mind moves smoother, and like you get more sleep and you don't feel sluggish. And it's actually much more important now that my age is advancing for my junior years, because I noticed that sometimes I would actually forget things that happened in the play, and I've trained myself for that not to happen. That hasn't happened like in decades, and now it's starting to happen. And then when I got into my exercise, it went away completely. So I'm, relieved that I don't have to deal with that kind of issue.
What does your diet and exercise routine look like these days?
Well, for a while, it was mostly at the gym, and I would do like cardio every other day-ish, but not, 7 days a week or anything. And then I would do like upper body and lower body alternating. And on those days, I would do cardio. In the beginning, it was maybe 3 days a week or 2 days a week just to get into it, because, going from zero to exercise regularly, not easy until you can build a routine around it, right? Now my exercise routine looks more like I go into the gym one day and I'll lift some weights. I'll do some core work, maybe on my own back at home with an exercise mat. And then the next day I'll go running because my girlfriend likes to run. And running is awesome, by the way. And I was not a runner as a kid. And so this was difficult to get into. But once I did, yeah, it feels great to be out there.
So you said at a tournament, you exercise some, but not like you're not crazy about.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to go through my whole routine necessarily in a given day that I might like to otherwise. Part of the problem is that the gyms are not necessarily outfitted for that.
And then after a tournament, what does your review, both personally and with your partner, look like?
Well, I mean, we'd like to talk about the hands more like during it. And so we'll play a set, and if there was something important that came up, we'll discuss it then. If there was nothing really important, then, we just kind of let these things go. But yeah, I mean, it's just important to, like, after a set of hands, say, did anything come up, and see what you can do with that.
Yeah. One theme I've been getting from, talking to a lot of people is that what differentiates really good players from, the level below them is less about just bridge skill, knowledge, experience, and more about just coming to the table and playing your best. Does that resonate for you?
Well, yes and no. I feel like coming to the table and playing your best might be what separates the very best players from the really great players, right? But I think mastering your skills of the game and your partnership are what's going to separate really great players from most of the otherwise competitive players.
Yeah. I feel like there is certainly a significant difference between you and me. And so that's part of what I'm trying to figure out this year is like, what should I be doing? If you were going to help me design a training regimen to just get better at bridge, how do you think I should be spending my time?
Well, I'm going to say that one of my advantages is that I really, really like bridge. Like, I really like bridge. And so if I'm thinking about bridge, I'm just always kind of happy. But you have to like constantly think about bridge. Things come up, you're like, huh, could that have gone differently? I wonder if there was a way to optimize there, and you have to think about things from their point of view. What was the psychology that could I have, would they have been taken in by a certain move? Would this false card have really misled them? How devious would that have been? And so you have to think about just all the different angles. And when you're really analyzing it, right, you can learn things and hopefully file them away for next time.
You have students, you work with people who are at the intermediate level. What do you see that the common sort of mistakes that they make at that level?
The biggest mistake that they make almost uniformly is counting. I don't know if they aren't willing to, or if they just, aren't apt to doing it well, but they have a lot of difficulty with, placing the high card points, placing the distribution in suits that aren't trump, especially remembering what's been discarded and adding it to the total. Specific spot cards, remembering what was played so that the next card has more relevance. Like a lot of these things, they have trouble with. So I would say that would be the biggest problem for most of them. I try to remind them that if they had decided to count this suit on this hand, that it would have given them information that they kind of needed. And so I'm hoping that, if I give them enough reminders how the counting might help them, that they would, find it in themselves to now push forward and really try and master that skill, because it is a big leaping stone to like move up in skill is counting. And a lot of players are not willing to do it. They just kind of want to play the game and be like, I sort of counted and I sort of knew what was going on. And, that was good enough on a bunch of hands, but why not, always count? And then you always know what's going on, And so that's a big deal. But
when you're counting, let's say you're counting out declares high cards, and they play the king, and they have the ace, whatever's happening, right? When do you put the ace in their hand? Like, when they later play the ace, how do you make sure that you're not counting it twice? Do you understand my question?
yeah, I understand your question. I'd say it's probably because I count the hand differently than that.
Okay.
I don't use like a current tally necessarily. I kind of think about the hand as soon as I can and try and place the high card points, what I think are around the table. And so when I'm placing the points, it kind of gives me an estimate of what I think Declare and my partner have. And so just when they show up with cards, like at some point, if I need to think about what I, might have changed, then I'll just take a moment and just add them up with the new information. But I don't think I've ever counted a card twice. So it's not like they're at 11 because I remember the ace is in their hand and now they're at 15 because they played the ace.
Never happened.
Never happened.
Me either. It's never happened to me. I was just asking for a friend.
Yeah, okay.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten about bridge?
Well, I remember one time I was playing in a team match and like a spin gold, and it was the fourth quarter, and we were losing the match badly. And the person trying to, sympathetically talk to me, he said, one thing I like to do when I'm behind like this is I like to pretend that the match is just starting new, and maybe we can just win this one quarter, And I pretty much thought to myself, you know what? That's not how I'm going to play the game. I'm going to try to win anyway.
Do you have a mentor these days? Like if you have a problem, do you have someone that you go to?
Well, if I think that a bridge problem is not necessarily satisfactory for me to solve by myself, then I have a bunch of trusted friends, experts that I value their opinion. And so I'll give them the problem that I'm thinking about and see what they have to say. And not necessarily that what they have to say is like more important than what I might have thought of or what, someone else might have thought of, but just that they might give me a perspective on how to think about it. And that would be insightful.
Are you a competitive person?
Yeah, I'm definitely fairly competitive.
Yeah.
But I don't mind losing as well.
Okay.
And that was not easy for me to learn. I learned it kind of early on when I started playing professionally because sometimes I'm just put in situations where I can't win because of what's been going on. And so acceptance with that did not come easy for me because up to then I had always been in a situation where the odds weren't stacked against me. And so like I always had a chance to win. So sometimes it's like, okay, you have to learn acceptance. And I'm not sure if that was a good thing or not, but it is more of a balancing.
So say you're in the finals of the Vanderbilt and it's a close match. If you win the match by 10, how long do you enjoy that? If you lose the match by 10, how long does that eat at you?
Well, I think losing the match lasts with me longer than winning the match. Winning the match, I mean, fantastic, feel great for, maybe years afterwards. But losing the match, that's like a lifetime of pain.
Are there any mistakes that you feel like you make too often? Because we all make mistakes, right? Do you find that there's a type of classification that you would say are the most common for you?
Yeah, I'd say the type of mistake that I'm more inclined to make is where I take an estimate of, I think, the likelihood of something succeeding is like if I have to push to a slam or if I have to maybe play no trump instead of a suit contract. And if my estimate says it's unlikely that I need to approach this angle, I sometimes just decide to overlook it and proceed with what I think is the likeliest outcome. Really, what I should be doing is leaving it up to partner on a lot of these auctions and just more cooperative bidding, I would say.
And between the world class players and the handful who are just at the very top, what distinguishes those top players? What's the difference?
Well, it's a little hard to say because sometimes you see these top players and you're just like, wow, they really get it. And I don't know if it's just they have a different way of thinking about the game that gets them there quicker or not. I sometimes wonder about it.
Are there any pairs or players that just have your number? That you're like, I never beat these guys.
Not really. I mean, historically, I haven't beaten several pairs, but it's not that they have my number. It's that I just haven't succeeded yet. I mean, I've had back and forths with them. Just the outcome hasn't been in my favor. That's all.
So what's your attitude like sitting down at the table against them? Is it like, this is my time?
No, it's just it's time to go to work. That's all. And I don't want to give away anything that they aren't entitled to.
How do you deal with a bad result?
I mean, one of my habits for growing is that I post-mortem to myself after a hand. And so if I have a bad result, I might still be thinking about it maybe a little longer than I should. And that can be distracting. But as soon as I catch myself being distracted, I'm like, okay, well, I have to put that away. And then I do, right? So, I mean, part of, I guess, how I deal with a bad result is thinking about it and thinking through what happened and trying to decide how that might have gone differently. And if it's my fault, I mean, obviously I feel bad about it, but at least I've come to a decision on how, the blame should be assessed at least. And yeah, probably if it's my fault, I also know why it's my fault. So it's much better to have a resolution over a bad result, right? In my own mind, at least, about what happened there in order to grow and move on.
That's interesting. So you need to kind of analyze it before you can let it go.
Yeah, usually.
How has bridge changed since you started playing?
Well, aside from the slow play penalties, I mean, that is a big, big change, by the way. I feel like directors breathing down your neck and also not just everyone equally, but people who are known to be slow. And guess who they've decided to pick on especially? I mean, I get these stories all the time. There's some well-known pair, slow every round, never gets a penalty. The director comes to my table twice and they're automatically penalizing me. I'm like, great. That's just wonderful. And then when I play quickly, of course, they're not around to take note of that. No, you never get kudos for playing quickly.
Would you like to see chess clocks or something? Like at the trials, it's great because it's all electronic and they know everything. But like playing with cards, would you like to see something that is really tracking the time?
I would love that. I would love that. Because if we played in an atmosphere where they track the time, I think that I could get a lot of this bad reputation off my back.
What is your opinion generally about card versus electronic?
I would prefer electronic because I don't want to think that my opponents might be doing something underhanded because I don't. And so I don't even want that to be a possibility. And I think it's a lot harder to do something like that over an electronic interface than it would be in person.
So if it were up to you, what events would be held?
And as many as they want. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like you also have to monitor it. If people are playing in their home, that's not going to really solve anything.
But like, would you hold the entire Spingold on laptops? Would you do like just the last couple rounds?
Tire Spingold on laptop sounds great to me, but you would have to have the manpower to monitor that kind of thing.
How do you think Bridge can appeal to a younger crowd?
It's good that they do events for the younger players, right? So the junior program, I remember that being a fantastic experience, mainly because I was hanging out with people my own age and doing an activity that we all loved. So we get to, social and also play this great game together. And also left alone somewhat to do our own thing, not have the watchful eye of an adult on us 24/7 feels pretty good. So that kind of thing is definitely motivational for young people.
Do you think the loss of the midnights at the Nationals has been detrimental?
I mean, it was a fun time, but it wasn't like how I remember my juniors years being like mostly spent. To me, the midnight game is more about just like, laughing and trying out some random stuff and having a good time. And there's always at least one team that's taking it way too seriously. And so you'll play against this team and you'll be laughing and maybe, making some jokes and playing some system that you wouldn't otherwise. And they're just like, ready to call the director. And you're like, okay.
Do you know what this event is?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is like, it's pretty late in the day for that. Everyone's just trying to have a good time and blow off some steam. So, you can try your best to win 5 master points, but that's not why we're here.
Yeah. My first national experience, I came home from college and the Nationals were in town. And so I saw, there's a game after my flight gets in. Great. And like everyone's drinking and I was like, what is this? But it was so fun. Like, what a great introduction to a national bridge tournament. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fun.
All right, well, thank you, Joel. This has been wonderful. Yeah, a lot of stuff for me to think about.
Yeah. Just words of advice that I can give, parting words for someone who's looking to improve their game is just think about bridge in as many angles as you can. And I don't mean like ways that you're not supposed to play the game. I mean just the psychology and the strategy and, the meaning behind things, because you can actually garner a lot of interesting ideas when you start thinking about it from different ways.
What percentage of your dreams are about bridge?
When I was younger, at a national event, I would dream about the cards all the time. But now, never.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, it is. But now I have fun dreams, so the cards aren't tormenting me anymore.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you again.